Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The oppressive silence of the penthouse was a physical presence, a third occupant in the room that seemed to swallow all but the most determined sounds. Nathan sat ensconced in a high-backed leather chair, a crystal tumbler of amber whiskey cradled in his hand, the ice cubes having long since melted into insignificance. He was staring out at the glittering skyline of Port Charles, a kingdom he had built with a combination of ruthless ambition, strategic genius, and a profound willingness to sacrifice anyone who stood in his way. The city's lights twinkled like captive stars, a testament to his dominion. This was his world, meticulously constructed, and he was its undisputed master. Or so he had believed, until the door to his sanctum had clicked open. James stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the softer lighting of the hallway. He had his mother's eyes, the same clear, direct gaze that could, on rare occasions, unnerve Nathan more than any corporate rival's threat. But the set of his jaw, the rigid line of his shoulders, that was all Nathan. He was the heir, the scion, the living embodiment of the legacy Nathan had fought so brutally to secure. For years, Nathan had viewed his son as a project, a piece of fine marble that needed only the correct application of pressure and chisel to be shaped into his successor. Lately, however, the marble had begun to show fractures. "James," Nathan said, his voice a low rumble that barely disturbed the quiet. He didn't turn from the window. "I wasn't expecting you. I assume this isn't a social call. The quarterly reports from the European divisions can wait until morning." James didn't move from the doorway. He simply stood, absorbing the scene, his father, the king on his throne, surveying his domain. The air was thick with the scent of old leather and expensive whiskey, a smell James had come to associate with power, isolation, and a deep, unspoken loneliness. "No," James replied, his voice quieter than his father's, but with a new, unsettling steadiness. "It's not about the reports." Finally, Nathan swiveled his chair, his eyes narrowing a fraction as he took in his son's posture. This wasn't the petulant anger of a young man chafing against his father's rules. This was something else, something colder and more deliberate. Nathan felt the first, faint stirrings of alarm, a sensation so foreign to him he almost didn't recognize it. He was a man who dealt in threats and absolutes, uncertainty was a weakness he could not afford. "Then speak your mind," Nathan commanded, gesturing vaguely with his glass. "I have a conference call with Singapore in 20 minutes. Whatever this is, I trust it can be resolved quickly." James took a few steps into the room, his shoes making no sound on the thick Persian rug. He stopped a few feet from his father's desk, a vast, obsidian monolith that had been the site of so many of their past confrontations, about grades, about friends, about James's refusal to major in business. Those arguments now seemed like childish squabbles, rehearsals for this, the main performance. "I've been doing some reading," James began, his tone conversational, almost detached. "Old company archives. Newspaper clippings from the late 90s. It's fascinating, the history of a corporation like this. The official story is always so clean, so heroic. The visionary founder, the bold risks, the triumphant success." Nathan took a slow sip of his whiskey, his gaze never leaving his son's face. "History is written by the victors, James. It's a lesson you would do well to learn. The narrative is a tool, as important as any stock portfolio or board seat." "I'm sure it is," James agreed, a faint, humorless smile touching his lips. "But sometimes, if you look hard enough, you can find the pieces that don't fit the official narrative. The loose threads." The stirrings of alarm in Nathan's chest intensified, coiling into a tight knot of dread. He kept his expression a mask of bored indifference. "And what loose threads have you been pulling, son? I hope you haven't been wasting your time with the conspiracy theories peddled by my detractors. They are envious men, nothing more." "It started with the name Prentice," James continued, as if his father hadn't spoken. "Silas Prentice. You never talk about him. He's a ghost in our family history, the man whose company you acquired in the hostile takeover that launched everything. The cornerstone of this entire empire." He paused, letting the name hang in the air between them. "The official record says he left the industry after the buyout. Retired. Faded into obscurity. Nathan's knuckles were white where he gripped the tumbler. That is correct. The man was a sentimentalist. He couldn't adapt to the modern realities of business. It was a mercy what I did. I gave his failing company a future. A mercy, James repeated, the word dripping with skepticism. I found his daughter. The air in the room seemed to freeze solid. Nathan's mask of indifference cracked, just for a second, revealing a flash of pure, unadulterated shock. He recovered quickly, but it was too late. James had seen it. His daughter? Nathan's voice was dangerously soft. I was unaware he had any family. A wife who passed, I believe. No children mentioned. Her name is Elizabeth. Elizabeth Prentice Rossi, James said, his voice gaining a sliver of emotional weight. She lives in a small town in Oregon. She was 16 when her father's company was taken from him. She remembers you. She remembers the day you came to their house. Nathan stood up abruptly, turning his back to James to pour himself another whiskey, though his glass was still half full. The action was a desperate need to do something with his hands, to hide the tremor that threatened to overtake them. This is ancient history, James. A pointless excavation. What is the purpose of this? To prove that business is sometimes unpleasant? I could have saved you the trip to the archives. She told me a different story, James pressed, his voice hardening. She said her father didn't just fade away. She said after he lost the company, he was a broken man. He spent 2 years fighting you in court, draining what little money he had left. He became reclusive. Depressed. James took a step closer. She said he started drinking. Heavily. A tragic tale, Nathan said, his back still turned. But not an uncommon one. Weak men break. Strong men build from the rubble. It is the way of the world. Is it? James's voice was like a shard of ice. She told me about the night he died. It was a Thursday. He'd been drinking. He got a phone call. She said he was shouting, his face was purple. She heard him say your name over and over. Nathan, you can't do this. It's all I have left. Then he slammed the phone down, stumbled out of the house, and got into his car. Nathan was perfectly still, the decanter poised over his glass. The only sound was the faint hum of the city beyond the glass. He drove his car off a bridge, James, Nathan said, his voice tight. It was a terrible accident. The police report confirmed it. He was intoxicated. It was a tragedy, but it was his own doing. That's the official story, isn't it? James's voice dropped to a near whisper, yet it carried with a terrifying clarity. But Elizabeth, she remembers the phone call. She remembers your name. And I found something else. A record of a wire transfer. From an offshore holding company you controlled at the time. It was made to a private investigator named Frank Valenti, the day before Silas Prentice died. Nathan slowly placed the decanter down on the sidebar with a definitive clink. He did not turn around. Valenti had a specialty, James continued, the pieces of his investigation falling into place with devastating precision. He wasn't just a PI. He was a fixer. He specialized in corporate intimidation. In making problems disappear. The police ruled it an accident, but they never knew about Valenti. They never knew what you said to Silas on that phone call to push a desperate, broken man over the edge. Nathan finally turned. The affable, powerful magnate was gone. In his place was the raw, unscrupulous fighter who had clawed his way to the top from nothing. His eyes were chips of flint, his mouth a cruel, thin line. You have been digging in places you do not understand, Nathan snarled, the civility evaporating entirely. You are a child playing with matches in a room full of dynamite. Whatever you think you know, you are wrong. Those records are forgeries, or you have misinterpreted them. This woman is a fantasist, bitter about her father's failures, looking for someone to blame. I met with Valenti, James said, and this time, the blow landed with physical force. Nathan actually took a half step back. He's an old man now. Sick. He doesn't care about your money or your threats anymore. He's scared of dying, and he wanted to clear his conscience. He confirmed it. You hired him to dig up dirt on Silas, to find any leverage to stop the lawsuits. He found something. Something about Silas's past, a secret he'd kept from everyone, including his daughter. Something that would have destroyed what was left of his reputation. You called Silas that night. You gave him an ultimatum. Drop the lawsuits and sign over his remaining patents, or you would make the information public. The silence that followed was deafening. The penthouse, once a symbol of ultimate success, now felt like a gilded cage. Nathan's face was a thundercloud, a maelstrom of rage, fear, and a shocking, burgeoning pride in the boy who had somehow managed to unearth a secret he had buried 2 decades ago. You have no proof, Nathan whispered, the words a venomous hiss. Valenti's word against mine. It is nothing. It's not about legal proof, Father, James said, his voice filled with a profound and weary sadness. It's about the truth. The truth you built our name on. The truth you fed me my entire life. That this, he gestured to the opulent room, the glittering skyline, was the product of brilliance and hard work. It wasn't. It was built on blackmail. It was built on a man's corpse. You didn't just beat Silas Prentice. You destroyed him. You as good as put him behind the wheel of that car yourself. Nathan strode around the desk, stopping inches from his son. He was still the larger man, his presence intimidating and overwhelming. He had used this tactic 1,000 times in boardrooms and back alleys. It had always worked. You listen to me, Nathan growled, jabbing a finger toward James's chest. Everything I did for this family. For you. I built an empire so that you would never have to know want, so that you would never have to fight in the dirt the way I did. This world is not a kind place, James. It is a jungle. You eat or you are eaten. Silas Prentice was weak. He was food. I was the predator. That is the only law that matters. For a moment, they stood locked in that primal stance, father and son, the past and the future, the unyielding wall of power confronting the quiet, damning force of truth. James did not flinch. He did not back down. He looked into the eyes of the man he had spent his whole life trying to please, the man he had feared and revered in equal measure, and he saw not a titan, not a king, but a desperate, cornered animal, terrified of the one thing he could not control, could not buy, and could not intimidate, the judgment of his own blood. The anger seemed to drain from James's face, replaced by something far more powerful and irrevocable, a final, absolute clarity. The last vestige of the boy who sought his father's approval was gone, leaving behind a man who knew his own mind and his own moral compass. He took a small, slow breath, his gaze unwavering. The 5 words he spoke next were not shouted. They were not hissed in anger or spat in venom. They were delivered with a calm, quiet, and devastating finality, each one dropping into the silence like a stone into a still pond, the ripples destined to shatter Nathan's world forever. I am not your son. For a full 10 seconds, there was no sound. The hum of the city vanished. The very air seemed to have been sucked from the room. Nathan's face went through a rapid, terrifying series of transformations. The first was utter, uncomprehending confusion, as if James had spoken in a language he didn't understand. His brain, a formidable machine capable of orchestrating billion-dollar deals and complex corporate massacres, simply failed to process the statement. It was a syntactic error, a logical impossibility. The confusion then curdled into a dawning, horrific understanding. His eyes, locked on James's, widened in disbelief. The words replayed in his mind, their meaning finally breaking through the wall of his rage. I am not your son. The denial was immediate and violent. What did you say? He breathed, the question barely audible. I am not your son, James repeated, the words no less powerful for their repetition. If anything, they were stronger, more concrete, a truth now spoken twice into existence. Nathan let out a sharp, ugly laugh, a sound devoid of any humor. It was the sound of a man grasping at the last, fraying thread of his reality. That is a lie. A pathetic, desperate lie. You look like me. You have my drive, my mind. This is another one of your games, another rebellion. You are trying to hurt me because you disapprove of my methods. It will not work. It's not a lie, James said, his voice impossibly calm in the face of his father's unraveling. I had my suspicions. The blood type never made sense. You're AB positive. Mother was O negative. I'm a negative. It's genetically impossible. You never noticed because you never paid attention to the small things, the human things. Nathan stared, his mind racing, trying to recall long-forgotten biology lessons, fighting against the scientific truth that was now being used as a weapon against him. A mistake at the lab, There was no mistake, James interjected softly. I took a DNA test. One of those commercial ones. For fun, at first. Then, when the results came, it wasn't fun anymore. It showed I had a half-sibling I never knew about. A sister. Her name is Chloe. I reached out to her. The ground was crumbling beneath Nathan's feet. He felt dizzy, his grip on the present moment slipping. A sister? This is insanity. Her mother, James continued, relentless in his quiet delivery, was a woman named Cassandra. Cassandra Wells. She was a junior analyst at the company. 25 years ago. The name struck Nathan with the force of a physical blow. Cassandra. He hadn't thought of that name in over 2 decades. A pretty, bright-eyed young woman with a quick laugh. A brief, careless affair during a time when his marriage to Olivia was a cold, political arrangement, a merger of families rather than a union of hearts. It had lasted a few months. He had ended it when she began to talk about a future, about feelings. He'd given her a generous severance package and a transfer to the London office. He had assumed she had gone. He had forgotten her. No, Nathan whispered, the denial weaker now, a retreating tide. It's not possible. She never went to London, James said, as if reading his mind. She found out she was pregnant. She knew you would never accept it. You would see the child as a liability, a threat to your perfect legacy. You would have taken the child from her, or worse, paid her off to disappear. So, she did. She resigned, she moved away, and she raised me on her own for the first year of my life. The story was unfolding like a nightmare, a hidden history rising from the grave to confront him. Nathan could only listen, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. She was sick, James's voice finally cracked, the first sign of the immense emotional toll this was taking on him. She had a rare, aggressive form of cancer. She knew she was dying. She had no family, no money. She made a decision. A desperate, impossible decision. She reached out to the one person who had the resources to give her son a future. She reached out to my mother. Olivia. The mention of his wife's name in this context was a fresh wave of shock. Olivia? She knew? Cassandra went to her, James nodded, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek, which he made no move to wipe away. She told her everything. She showed her the proof. And she begged her. She begged Olivia to take me, to raise me as her own. To give me the life she never could. Nathan's mind was reeling, trying to fit this new, monstrous piece into the puzzle of his life. Olivia. His cold, pragmatic wife. The woman who cared more about social standing and the appearance of perfection than anything else. Why would she? Why? The question was torn from him, a raw, guttural sound. You know why, James said, his gaze piercing. Mother had just had a stillbirth. A little girl. She was drowning in grief. You were absent. Buried in your work, building your empire. You barely noticed. She was alone, and she was broken. And then a woman shows up on her doorstep with a baby boy, a son she could not have, a son who needed a mother. It was a transaction. A secret pact between two women you had used and discarded. Mother gave me her name, her home, her love. And in return, she got a child to heal her heart. Cassandra got the peace of knowing her son would be safe and loved. She died 3 months later. Nathan staggered back, his legs hitting the edge of his desk. He supported himself with trembling hands. The entire foundation of his life, his marriage, his paternity, his very identity, had been a carefully constructed lie. For 24 years, he had been living in a house of cards, and the architect of the deception had been the two women he had considered beneath his notice. All these years, Nathan choked out. Olivia, she never said a word. She kept her promise, James replied. She was a better mother to me than you ever were a father. She loved me. She protected me. Even from you. The finality in James's voice was absolute. This was not a negotiation. This was not a power play. This was a simple statement of fact. The life Nathan thought he had, the heir, the legacy, the continuation of his bloodline, was an illusion. The son he had molded, disciplined, and planned his future around was not his flesh and blood. He was the son of a woman he had casually cast aside, raised by a wife who had looked him in the eye every day for 24 years and maintained the most profound, intimate betrayal imaginable. The rage that had been building in Nathan now exploded, but it was a different kind of rage. It was not the hot, focused anger of a businessman thwarted. It was a primal, world-ending fury, the fury of a man whose entire existence has been rendered a mockery. It was a madness. Liar, he roared, the sound echoing off the glass and marble. He swept his arm across his desk, sending the crystal tumbler, a laptop, a stack of important documents, and a heavy marble paperweight crashing to the floor. The whiskey splashed like blood against the pale rug. You are a liar. You are my son. You are mine. He advanced on James, his face contorted into a mask of pure, unhinged fury. Everything you are, I made you. Your schools. Your opportunities. Your damned manners. That is my DNA in you, not some secretaries. You will retract this. You will take it back. James stood his ground, his expression one of pity and resolve. I can't take back the truth, Nathan. The use of his first name, the deliberate removal of the title father, was the final twist of the knife. Nathan stopped dead, his chest heaving. He looked at the young man before him, and for the first time, he did not see his reflection. He saw the ghost of Cassandra Wells. He saw the cool, assessing eyes of his wife, Olivia. He saw the culmination of their secret alliance. He saw a stranger. Get out, Nathan whispered, the fury collapsing in on itself, leaving behind a vast, howling emptiness. Get out of my sight. James gave one last, long look at the man he had once called father. There was no triumph in his eyes, only a deep, sorrowful finality. He had come here to confront a monster and had instead unmasked a broken man. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the penthouse, closing the door softly behind him. Nathan was alone. The silence rushed back in, but it was no longer oppressive. It was accusatory. It was filled with the ghosts of Silas Prentice, of Cassandra Wells, of the daughter he and Olivia had lost, and of the son who had never been his. He stared at the wreckage on his floor, the shattered glass and spilled whiskey, a pathetic mirror of the wreckage of his life. He stumbled to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold, unyielding glass. The kingdom of light sprawled before him, a testament to his power, his will, his ruthlessness. He had conquered it all. He had beaten every rival, crushed every enemy, and amassed a fortune beyond imagining. The tension in Port Charles had been simmering for weeks, and now it was about to boil over. The air inside the Metro Court was thick with unspoken words, and when James walked through the doors, heads turned. He wasn't the same boy who'd once idolized his father. His eyes were sharper now, his jaw more set, his movements deliberate. He had come for answers, and he wasn't leaving without them. Nathan West, seated near the window, looked up from his coffee, and for a split second, the relief of seeing his son alive and well flickered across his face. But that relief vanished as soon as he saw the look in James's eyes. "James," Nathan said cautiously, standing. "Didn't expect to see you here." His voice was calm, but there was a tremor under the surface, the kind that only a parent could feel when they knew something bad was coming. James stopped a few feet away, his gaze unflinching. "You never do," he replied coldly. The words hit Nathan like a slap. Around them, the quiet chatter of other patrons seemed to fade into the background. It was just the two of them now, father and son, locked in a silent battle of pride and pain. Nathan motioned to the chair across from him. "Sit down. Let's talk like we used to." James let out a bitter laugh. "Like we used to? You mean back when you told me everything was fine while you were lying to everyone, including me?" Nathan exhaled, trying to steady himself. "I made mistakes, James. But you don't understand the reasons behind them. I was trying to protect you." James's hands clenched at his sides. "Protect me? Or protect yourself?" The accusation cut deep, and Nathan's eyes hardened. "You think I did this for me? You have no idea what I've sacrificed." James leaned forward, his tone low but sharp. "You sacrificed honesty. You sacrificed our family. You sacrificed every bit of trust one had in you." Nathan's voice rose, his patience unraveling. "I did what I had to do. You don't know the whole story." James's jaw tightened. "Then tell me. Tell me why you left Mom to pick up the pieces while you disappeared for years. Tell me why every time I ask you about your past, you change the subject. Tell me why you let me grow up thinking you were dead." Nathan's expression darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." James stepped closer. "Don't I? I found the files, Dad. The ones you thought you destroyed." Nathan froze, every muscle in his body locking up. "What files?" James's eyes flashed. "The ones that prove you were working with Victor Cassadine long before anyone thought you were. You didn't just go undercover, you were part of it." The blood drained from Nathan's face. He tried to speak, but no words came. James's voice trembled with fury. "How could you? You were supposed to be one of the good guys." Nathan's chest rose and fell heavily. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "I had to do things I wasn't proud of to keep our family safe. Victor would have killed all of us if I hadn't played along." James shook his head. "You always have an excuse. Always another story. But the truth never changes, you lied." Nathan's hands curled into fists. "I lied to keep you alive," he shouted. The room went still. Everyone turned to look. But James didn't flinch. He stared at his father with a coldness Nathan had never seen before. "I didn't ask to be protected," James said softly. "I asked to be told the truth." Nathan's voice dropped to a whisper. "I did what I thought was right." James took a deep breath, his anger breaking through the cracks of his composure. "Right? Is that what you call disappearing for 5 years, letting everyone mourn you, and then walking back into our lives like nothing happened?" Nathan's eyes glistened with guilt. "I didn't have a choice, James." "You always had a choice," James snapped. "You just didn't choose us." The words hung between them like a sentence that couldn't be undone. Nathan's voice cracked. "You think I wanted to leave? You think it didn't kill me every day knowing you and your mother thought I was dead?" James looked away, struggling to hold back tears. "Then why didn't you come home?" Nathan hesitated. "Because if I did, you would have both been targets." Victor wasn't finished. He had eyes everywhere. James laughed bitterly. "So you let him win. You let him take you from us." Nathan slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand. James leaned forward, his voice trembling but fierce. Then make me understand. Because all I see is a coward hiding behind excuses. Nathan's expression hardened. Watch it, he warned. I'm still your father. James looked him dead in the eyes and said the 5 words that sent Nathan over the edge. You're not my father anymore. The words sliced through the air like a knife. Nathan stumbled back as if he'd been struck. Don't you say that, he whispered, his voice breaking. James's face twisted with grief and anger. Then stop making it true. Nathan reached for him, desperate now. James, please. Don't do this. I know you're angry, but James pulled away. You don't get to tell me how to feel. Not after everything you've done. Nathan's eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. I was trying to save you from a world you didn't understand. James shook his head. You can't save someone by abandoning them. You destroyed everything we had, Dad. Everything. Nathan took a shaky step forward. You're my son. That will never change. James met his gaze. Then start acting like it. For a moment, silence reigned between them, heavy and suffocating. Nathan looked down, unable to meet his son's eyes. You think I wanted any of this? He murmured. Every day I was gone, I thought about you. Every night I saw your face. But if I'd come home, you'd both be dead. I made a deal with the devil to protect the only people I ever loved. James's anger wavered for just a moment, but the damage was already done. You made a deal, all right. And now I have to live with the consequences of it. Nathan's voice cracked. James, I need you to believe me. James stared at him for a long moment before whispering, I don't know if I can. Nathan's heart shattered. Then let me prove it. Let me fix this. James looked away, his jaw tight. You can't fix years of lies, Dad. Nathan's shoulders sagged. Maybe not. But I can try. James exhaled, his expression torn between rage and heartbreak. You don't get it. The person I needed to protect me, to tell me the truth, wasn't Victor, it was you. Nathan's throat tightened. And I failed you. I know that. But I'm here now. James laughed bitterly. You think showing up now erases what you did? Nathan's voice rose again, desperate. I'm trying to make things right. You're too late. James shouted. You left us. You left me. His voice cracked, and for a moment the anger gave way to raw pain. Nathan reached for him again, but James stepped back, his expression hardening once more. I don't know who you are anymore, James said quietly. The man who raised me wouldn't have worked with Cassidines. He wouldn't have lied about everything. He wouldn't have let his family believe he was dead. Nathan's eyes filled with anguish. I did what I had to do. No, James replied coldly. You did what you wanted to do. Nathan swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. You think I enjoyed living like that? Every day was hell. Every night I wondered if you'd ever forgive me. James crossed his arms. You should have thought about that before you chose your secrets over your son. Nathan's breath caught. I never chose them over you.